We're now going to go ahead and throw the spotlight on this topic: need for brands on shelves to collaborate with store environments to deliver effective shopper marketing today. Ladies and gentlemen, to take this session forward, please put your hands together as we welcome onto stage Miss Jane Perry, Managing Director, Geometry Global Singapore. A warm welcome to you. Good afternoon.
Hello. Hi there. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here and for your attention. I have to say I'm really relieved with that wonderful setup that Bijou gave, so thank you. There's always a slight anxiety with following somebody else's presentation that there may be some contradictions or some controversial points, but in fact it was a perfect setup for my session with you today. The first slide that you see here, the human advantage, the brief to me for this presentation at InStore Asia was really about the need for brands to collaborate more efficiently, more effectively with retailers to get better traction, better engagement, better involvement from shoppers in store and at shelf. And we call this at Geometry the human advantage. And what we mean by this is that retail is really uniquely positioned to offer a human advantage, a human touch, a human engagement with shoppers that some of the really innovative and very important digital channels may not, which sets up what I'm not going to talk about today. And the reason that I put this in here was not to discredit the trends and the ever-growing importance of truly omni-channel marketing, omni-channel shopper marketing, omni-channel campaigns. And for those of you who may not be aware, omni-channel is really about the convergence of all commerce touch points, whether it's physical, whether it's e-commerce, mobile, the ever-growing voice commerce. It's really about making sure that it's fluid. It's the expectation that humans, that shoppers, expect the same experience on all of these platforms. It's very important. It's a presentation I would love to give you another time, but I am going to leave this here and we're going to focus on physical bricks and mortar retail. As I mentioned, physical retail is really well placed to... Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't been clicking the whole time. Let me just click. There we go. Physical retail is uniquely placed to offer shoppers, consumers, this level of sensory engagement that many of the other digital channels may not. This is really underpinned by the fact that we know that people are willing to invest in sharing their personal information, their data, with retailers, with brands, in order to have a valuable exchange. No longer is it about providing personal information purely just on discounts or purely just on time saving. It's really about looking for what that valuable exchange might be in order to track and monitor people and their data. We're also in an era where experiences are starting to make us much happier than personal possessions and belongings. And this is ever more prevalent on social channels. You know, when Instagram first launched and they came out with all these trends about the most popular posts, and it was all around possessions. Now the most popular posts are all around experiences, and we're also seeing this in consumer indexes in terms of where people are spending disposable incomes. So it's lifestyle, it's health and wellness, it's the food you eat, the holidays you take. And again, retail, physical retail, is really well poised to tap onto this human insight. As I mentioned earlier, shoppers are willing to share more information with us and more data with us if there's something valuable in it for them. And this is particularly prevalent at the moment, given that we're busier than ever, we are overcome by choice, we have less time to spend. So sharing personal information or sharing data with brands or retailers in order to make life easier for people, for shoppers, is that sensitive exchange. We also know that around 75% of shoppers say that personalised promotions, personalised offers, personalised information, they're more likely to engage with retailers and brands if that's done in a more effective way. And again, tying back to Biju's comment earlier, I really liked the analogy he shared about retailing of yesteryear. We really haven't moved far away from that. Retailing of yesteryear, when we think about the small corner stores and the store owner who almost operated like a beacon of the community. Products and services were often purchased on consignment in these environments. And if we think about all these trends and insights, this is really where we're still existing and playing in today. And the good news for us as marketers, as retailers, as brands, is that despite all of this proliferation in technology, we're still human beings. You know, 30 years of the internet doesn't change billions of years of human evolution. Increasingly busy lives mean that shoppers are demanding immediate convenience, and this isn't just about time saving. This is not just about making things faster and quicker. By immediate convenience, we also mean helping consumers and shoppers to make better informed and more wise choices. There's a big implication in terms of what's happening with time, particularly in a market like India. We know that around 2/3, or the prediction is that 2/3 of the world's middle class is going to come out of this region, the majority of which is expected to come out of India in the future. And Biju touched on this in his session as well. And the implications and the ramifications for retailers or brands in this is that this growing middle class is moving more closer to urban centres. If we think about it from a really tactical perspective from a retailer, their shopping missions are a lot faster, a lot more frequent. We're expecting instant solution and instant gratification, and that's why we're seeing from a physical retail perspective, store formats are getting smaller, they're getting more prolific in urban centres around the world, and particularly driven out of markets like India and China. So again, tying back to the human advantage, or we could call it the physical retail advantage. It's about establishing a platform and environment for us to feed intrinsic human needs and wants and desires. And with that, we've identified 3 key drivers. The first here is that shoppers are really looking for experiences, not just point of sale. With these busy, complex lives that we've talked about, and the fact that they're going to become busier and more complex, we need to consider the amount of variants that are available to shoppers today. You know, how many variants of noodles do we actually need? It's really not about assuming that shoppers are coming into a retail environment to pursue aisles and to engage with our environment. They're often mission-driven, and it's about popping up, surprising and delighting. And the third one here is the added value, as I touched on. So this is really about making life easier. This is really about honing in on a really rich and deep-rooted insight, identifying a need, and then developing communication solutions, brands, environments, experiences to tap into that. So I've got some case studies to help to bring this to life, and the first one really looks at providing experiences, not just point of sale. And I think we need to remember, you know, I'm quite mindful that 50% of the people that are engaging at the In-Store Asia Expo are brand manufacturers, and the other 50% are retailers. And providing experiences in physical retail is not just the playground of the retailers. There is an opportunity for brand manufacturers there is that sensitive interchange between these, I think Bijou called it simmering tension that brand manufacturers often have with retailers in order to gather insights and information about the environment. So the example I'm about to show you really sets the precedence for a category that was struggling. This case study is out of Malaysia, and this was done exclusively for Tesco. It has rolled out in other markets since then, so you may have seen it, and we'll talk a bit more about it when it's finished.
Chocolates. People love chocolates, but molded chocolate bars are not a big hit among Malaysians. We needed to make a change and find a new role for Cadbury Dairy Milk. Chocolates make good gifts, but Cadbury Dairy Milk was perceived to be a little too ordinary to make good gifts. How could we make them see this as an exciting and meaningful gift? The idea? Say it with chocolate. With the help of a letterpress machine, a plain bar of Cadbury Dairy Milk turned into a perfect spot to print custom messages, leaving the wrappers untouched. Seemingly plain bars of chocolate became exciting, bespoke gifts with surprise messages inside. During Hari Raya, we rolled out the campaign and invited the public to say it with chocolate through a mix of PR and digital advertising, including social media, bloggers, and mobile marketing. We also made it easy for everyone to find us with a store locator. As a result, many turned up in Tesco's nationwide to personalize Cadbury Dairy Milk to be given away as meaningful gifts. They started to perceive Cadbury Dairy Milk in a new light. Our consumers loved it, and the media lapped it up. The success of Say It With Chocolate went further than we imagined. It ended up as an award-winning idea, adapted in many countries around the world. Most of all, it went to prove that a plain bar of Cadbury Dairy Milk could be all we need to bring joy to those we care about.
Thank you. This is a great, it's one of my favourite cases to share. It's a great example of a brand working with a retailer to solve one of their challenges. The brief to us from Cadbury was a sales promotion. We then almost operated as a marriage counsellor between the retailer and the brand manufacturer, and what we established was that Tesco Malaysia was actually struggling with the category. We all know that retailers don't care about brands, they care about categories. And so we started to change the language and the conversations that we were having with Cadbury about their variants, and instead started to talk to the category. And the brief ended up becoming, how do we get consumers to turn down the confectionery aisle? Because that was the challenge for Tesco. This didn't cost Cadbury anything. They didn't have to pay for promotional space. And the reason is because the way we sold it to Tesco was that it was exclusive to them. We would drive footfall into their environment. We would improve the category sales, and we would drive engagement in store. It was never a sales promotion for a brand. Okay, so moving on to the next human advantage at retail is really about this personalisation or curated for me. And often when we see this, it's, personalisation is always a hot topic of any retail trends presentation. It's typically branding or personalised products or services. This is really about experiences, personalising the experience. As I said earlier, it's really about honing in on this insight that we're not as invested in in-store shops as we used to be. We're not sort of meandering for as long. Our shopper visits are much shorter and they're getting even faster. So how do we pop up in a shopper's own territory, in their own world? The next example I have for you is for a client, and again, the brief to us was for a sampling campaign in store. And we could have put promoters in a retail environment and done a sampling initiative. Instead, we did this.
You know, grocery shopping is a must, but you might be picking up more than you think.
Shopping carts, specifically those handles,
could be contaminated with up to 1 million germs.
Salmonella, E. coli, and Staph aureus are nasty bacteria that cause severe gastrointestinal illnesses. Certain uncommon strains can even be deadly.
Lifebuoy is all about protecting people against germs and against infections. Think about how many people touches these trolleys every day. And just with one swipe, you can get them clean and disinfected with Lifebuoy. Right now, we are partnering with Carrefour in their flagship store, the biggest store in the Middle East.
Very easy and very clean solution.
When we hold the trolley, it is not clean. So generally when we leave the trolleys, we sanitize our hands. It makes me feel safe.
And there are various applications for this. We want to use them in hospitals, in the trains, in the bus.
Thank you. Again, the thing I love about this is that it's relevant for the shopper. It's really based on it plays on a personal importance of particularly a mother or a parent. It educates her in her own terms, in her own journey. It was an unexpected experience, and obviously, again, fantastic value for the retailer. And this is just a really quick example, not ours, unfortunately, but I wanted to sort of identify that personalising experiences doesn't always have to be really high-tech. This is a South Korean beauty brand, Innisfree, and super simple. I just saw this in store in Singapore last week. When you enter the store, if you would like help with your cosmetics or your purchases, you pick up one basket. If you would like to be left alone and to peruse the store on your own terms, you pick up another. I think it taps in on this fantastic insight that often we're inundated by salespeople in these environments, or we're not getting the help that we need. So just a really nice example to bring to life personalisation in a non-tech way. And so the final one here is seeking added value, and this is really about surprising and delighting and giving time back to people, to shoppers, adding value to their busy and complex lives, helping to solve issues that they may not have even been aware of or raised themselves. And the example that I have for you here really showcases how to solve a problem for a shopper in store. This could have been a big integrated ATL campaign. Instead, it was a really simple, cost-effective in-store one, and we'll talk a bit more about it once it's done. So a really nice example of taking the brand out of the category, interrupting a shopper's journey in another place, and great value again for the retailer in terms of something playful but also really effective. So with that, I think it's important to recognise that there's no surprise that many of those examples I shared with you were developed exclusively for a retailer. More and more, we're having to sit in the middle of our clients as brand manufacturers with their key customers, the retailers, to really help them to understand the retailer as a brand in its own right, to help our brand manufacturer clients to understand how they can build off those retailers' equities. And there's a bunch of ways that we go about this. So before any campaign or initiative that we develop that is intended for in-store or online for that matter, we will always run through several, but these are 4 key ones. The first is really understanding the retail ecosystem, and this really means that what we look at is, depending on when you studied or which agency you come from, it's either the path to purchase, the purchase decision journey, there was 4 Ps, now there's 8 Ps, but regardless, it's really about understanding how shoppers are using the retail environments, understanding the different shopper missions, what drives them to retail or e-commerce, and building off those insights when we start to think about campaigns or engagement at store. The second is really understanding the retailer's shopper. We invest so much time in understanding psychographics and demographics and purchase intent of our consumers. We're not spending enough time in really understanding the behaviours once they become a shopper. The example of the milk, the last video that I shared with you, was a great illustration of understanding that the consumer in that instance was not the shopper. The shopper was obviously the mother. So it was honing in on the insight that there was a problem with the consumer, but it was the mother who was the person that we needed to influence. So really understanding the retailer's shoppers as well. Why are they visiting one store over another, or one retail format over another? Why are they or why are they not turning down one aisle or engaging with one category over the other? The third is understanding the retailer's touch points. Really leverage, this is such an untapped opportunity for so many of our clients as brand manufacturers. Really understanding what media touch points are available by the retailer, and often they have their own agendas across all of these as well. So tapping into loyalty cards, tapping into e-commerce platforms, tapping into websites, mobile, social, etc. Really understanding how they're using all of these media touch points and how you can leverage them for your brand, but also for the retailer's brand. And the fourth one here is understanding the calendar. Really basic, but so often a question that's not asked and something that's neglected. So understanding what the marketing calendar for the retailer's brand looks like for the year, looking at holiday periods and occasions and how we can tap into those. I've got a case here that showcases how an in-store campaign was driven by the popularity from the retailer. So this started with a traditional retail transaction. So the brand transacted with the retailer in order to showcase a promotion. The promotion became so big that the retailer then invited the brand back 2 years in a row afterwards for free. And it became a little bit of a war between retailers because they all wanted this exclusively in their environments.
In 2014, Sealord, New Zealand's biggest seafood company, launched a little boat that made huge waves. By making a little version of one of their fishing boats that Kiwis could win, Sealord delivered a promotion like no other. Our maritime-obsessed nation went overboard with their love for the little boat. With very little investment, brand love and sales went through the roof, and Mike Shepherd, the real Sealord skipper who piloted the diminutive craft, became a celebrated hometown hero and an inspirational figure for the brand. So how could Sealord follow in the wake of their big little boat promotion? By making the boats even smaller. In 2015, Sealord launched a fleet of littler boats. charming scale model reproductions of their fishing boats that were fully remote controlled. The Little Fleet formed the heart of a fully integrated campaign. Teaser content was seeded via social media, with Mike Shepherd reprising his role as captain in the Little Fleet pre-rolls and content, whilst each store was given their own little boat to display. Young Kiwis were then given the chance to win one of the littler little boats by making their own boat mock-ups to be uploaded to the Sealord Facebook page, or by purchasing Sealord in-store. Little Kiwis flooded the Sealord Facebook page with their creations, and as eager mums and dads loaded trolleys with Sealord products to increase their chances to win, Sealord saw sales increasing by 20%. Retailers loved the little boats so much they once again gave Sealord free display space, creating their own big-scale displays to house the prize. With the big sale increases, digital engagement and growth in brand love by 10%, Sealord once again proved that it's the little ideas that can have the greatest impact.
So the great thing about this is it effectively humanised tinned tuna. You know, it's a pretty low involvement category, and they made it really playful and fun for the brand, but also for the retailer. Two more examples I've got to share with you as a little bit of inspiration. I'm mindful of time. Just to bring to life this whole premise of not being inhibited by your norm of a brand, a category norm, a retail format norm. These kind of conferences and conventions are fantastic in order to inspire us in ways to think about new ways to reach consumers and shoppers. And we need to do more of that. So often we're briefed on products or services that are deemed unsexy or unengaging, and we need to start gathering insights and inspiration outside of the category. And I think, you know, what I've tried to not do today is provide examples of really huge, big, massive investment retail experiences that turn environments into showrooms or galleries, because they're great and it's important for us to look at those. But we've tried to share more tangible and real-life examples that you can apply in your market. And some ways to do that and some questions to ask. The first is, shopper and retail in physical retail doesn't always mean in-store. And the example that I have to show you next was really about driving behaviour in-store and at shelf, but doing that from outside of the store.
Poor hygiene kills over 1.1 million children annually in developing countries. Lifebuoy believes this tragedy can be prevented. The Mahakumbh Mela, India, 2013, the largest religious festival on the planet. Over 100 million Hindus congregate by the river Ganga to pray together, live together, and eat together. Lifebuoy decided to convey an important message at this festival. Always wash your hands with soap before you eat. Our medium, the roti. Served with almost every Indian meal. And the only way to eat it is with your hands. We created a heat stamp capable of leaving a simple message on a roti. Did you wash your hands with Lifebuoy? And over 30 days, a team of 100 people stood in 100 kitchens, stamping over 2.5 million fresh rotis, helping us reach out to over 5 million visitors at the Mahakumbh Mela.
Again, what could have been a simple sampling initiative in store. And the final example that I have for you is really tapping into this insight that shopper and retail promotions in physical retail is all about sell, sell, sell. And I have a great example from a seemingly low and somewhat saturated category.
Pril dishwashing liquid has concentrated power. That means to completely clean a whole set of dishes, it only takes 1 drop of Pril. That's what we've been saying for years. Until our competitors started promising the same. So to make our everlasting promise big again, we decided to go small. Meet the Pril 1-drop bottle. The exact Pril detergent bottle, reduced to the size of a thumbnail. Carefully crafted in a 6-month production process. The special edition bottle was announced through traditional media and soon went big in supermarkets across the region. To amplify the message, we created a series of short films, GIFs, and posts for social media. The drop was so powerful, it made quite a splash. Pril, making dishwashing easier and much more efficient, 1 drop at a time.
And with that, and in summary, I guess the 3 key takeaways of my session today are these. So physical retail is uniquely poised. There's a competitive advantage to get to know shoppers, to get to know people, to be human. Work with the retailers, talk to them, understand their brand, understand their motivations and their drivers. And the holy grail here is helping them to differentiate from their nearest competitor. Retailer exclusive initiatives are becoming a lot more critical to our clients' brands. And the third, they're really thinking outside the category and not being inhibited by your category or retail format norms. Thank you very much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you're going to agree that we were completely engaged right through the session. Thank you so much, Ms. Jane Perry. Thank you. And now I invite onto stage Ms. Anuradha Singh, Chief Experience Design, Future Retail. She's going to join us on stage, share with us the key takeaways from the session, and pick the 3 best questions. Requesting Ms. Perry to stay with us on stage. We're going to request you to answer these questions and then choose, according to you, the best question, and that person gets to walk away with 10,000 rupees right now from InSync. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Jane. We all, I think, love the idea of the human advantage, and I think especially today when in India there's so much talk about online, it's heartening to a retailer like us to be able to hear that physical stores still matter. And I'm still wondering which out of the 35,000 decisions I've not yet made till today. Okay, so I have 2 questions for you. One question is, it comes from someone in the audience, which says, while we shoppers expect a personalized approach from stores, how does a brand sitting on the shelf create that personalized connect with the shop?
Good question. I hope that was at the beginning of my session and not at the end, because I hope that I answered that with some of the inspiration that I shared. But my advice would be to start with understanding the retailer first. So if your brand is absorbed into a sea of sameness on shelf or in a busy category, really spend time with your key customers, with your retail partners, to understand how you can work more collaboratively together. And this is even more critical for the non-champion brands. I think champion brands are much better at having category conversations with retailers, but the smaller brands are not. So that would be my advice in terms of a starting point, and to help the retailer to overcome a challenge that they may be having within your category. Also, the second part would be, as I shared, thinking outside of your category as well, thinking where and how you could engage with somebody along their purchase journey that may not be in your category. It also helps, and this can be a challenge, but really honing in on an insight that you may have, really understanding your consumers, understanding your shoppers, and honing in on an insight and a territory that you can really own, you can really work with, you can really collaborate with the retailer on. And that's where I think that making life easier for a shopper to choose you will come from.
The second question, I think, is it's more Indian, and someone asks, how do you see Indian retailers working on the collaboration of merchandise with the shopping environment, and what's the way forward?
Yeah, I'm really mindful that, you know, the level of sophistication in terms of this sort of brokering between brand manufacturers and retailers varies considerably in our region, particularly in markets that have incredibly fragmented retail. In India, as we heard earlier, the majority of certainly FMCG brands are still going through that traditional trade or general trade. So again, I would say that it's just about moving from transactional deals with retailers and store owners and starting to build off their equities. And that works here in India as well, and particularly for traditional trade. You know, we work in rural marketing a lot in our agency, and we see time and time again for markets that have fragmented retail like India or China, that the relationship of a brand manufacturer usually stops at a distributor or a wholesaler level, and brands aren't actually aware of who these retailers are, how they're selling your products and your services. So I would say for India specifically, it's about understanding those channels, looking at sales channel optimization. How can you reach the retailers? We're starting to see some really cool case studies come out about using mobile to help educate and incentivize store owners in traditional trade. So tapping into using digital to tap into those kind of trends. It's a whole other presentation, but also gamification for retailers. You know, again, if we're targeting traditional trade, working out how we can educate them in surprising, new, innovative ways, rather than assuming that a point of sale pack and an instruction manual in a box is actually going to drive any kind of engagement with your brand. So I hope that answered your questions.
So you may have to pick one of the two questions to be the winner.
It's a lot of pressure. I think the second question I like, just because it's very specific to your market, so I would say the second.
Well, we've got the name right here. It is Tejinder Pal. Are you here? Yes, please walk onto stage right now. Congratulations. I think that's one of the pluses of having downloaded the app so early, making sure that you upload your question. Let's have the certificates right here. Can we request Miss Perry to hand over the certificate? Can you please join us, Miss Singh? Congratulations. Keep the questions coming is all we're saying. Well, that's definitely attractive as that really tiny bottle of Krill. Thank you so much. Well, now we'd like to say a big thank you. Thank you, Miss Perry.